All right. I think we have a pretty good matchup here, even if some of the stats are a little lopsided. Yeah, yeah. Hey, what if we equalize the stats? Equal stats, huh? Yeah, yeah, that might be good. Uh, that way we could analyze power versus power, uh, see how they bounce off each other. Yeah, yeah, that might be fun. Ooh, you know what would be even better? No powers at all. Just hands. Yeah, we're gonna get all straight cage match with this one. No powers? Just hands? Doesn't that just bring us back to square one with the lopsidedness? What? No. This makes it so we're talking about martial arts capabilities. It'll be our own version of Mike Tyson versus Bruce Lee, and my money's on martial arts. Hey guys, Daniel here, and I have a confession to make.
I love Kung Fu! Uh-oh.
Yeah. uh, I've been studying Kung Fu for a couple decades now, though I didn't get really serious with it until about 10 years ago. Though now I'm finally a second Dan in my system, and I've begun branching off into other forms of martial arts, and even teaching in my own. It's sort of exciting, and... Wait a minute, I thought traditional Chinese martial arts didn't have a belt system. Correct, but that's a topic best saved for another video. Alright then. Back to the topic at hand. I consider myself very lucky in that my primary instructor, it was also my father, a man who has been studying martial arts for over 50 years. He started off in karate before migrating over to traditional Chinese kung fu, and he even has some experience in Krav Maga. Other instructors I've had have had varied martial arts backgrounds as well, which I find to be super important. And they've had everything ranging from kung fu to tai chi to judo. And while I am far from an expert in anything, I do consider myself very blessed in having such diverse and knowledgeable teachers. I've also gotten to spar against everyone ranging from boxing hobbyists to people who practice wrestling. So I've gotten to experience fighting different types of fighting styles as well. I love martial arts, especially Kung Fu. I love the history and getting to learn new forms and techniques. I love the exercise it gives me and the way it pushes me to improve. I love the different styles. I even love the aesthetic of martial arts. So it pains me every time certain topics come up and I have to do a reality check to people and say, martial arts aren't magic. They're not. Look, martial arts can be the great equalizer. They are a great source of exercise, and learning to properly throw a punch and a kick can help close certain gaps, especially between the trained and the untrained. But closing the gap is not the same thing as erasing one. Even today, there is a lot of myth building around martial arts. This is a world where we have both McDojo Life and Zhu Xiaodong, and there are still people out there that believe Bruce Lee could take Mike Tyson in a fight. Hey now, Bruce Lee's the GOAT. I can give you 13 reasons why he takes Tyson in the ring. The topic of fictional characters' martial arts abilities has always been part of versus battle discussions, but an interesting trend seems to have evolved from this. That is the all important question: no powers, just hands. Who takes this? Full disclosure, of course, we know I didn't come up with the just hands question. It's been trendy on TikTok for a while, but I actually got the idea from a tweet made by the Imaginary Axis. And if you don't know who that is, you should stop my video and go watch his. His comic book theory videos are really top tier. As you can see in the tweet, a lot of people really seem to favor Goku in this just hands conversation, usually falling back on his martial arts ability as reasoning.
But guess what? Yujiro is not beating Goku because Goku's a martial arts genius and he solos!
And the whole Goku solos thing is a meme. But I did think, why not let our boy go through a just hands gauntlet and see just how far martial arts can take him? First, a few notes. One, as always, given the nature of hypothetical fights, most of this, if not all of it, is fairly subjective. These are my opinions, and if you disagree, feel free to tell me why. Two, I didn't invent any of these matchups. I pulled them all from Google, TikTok, or other versus groups I'm in. I'm not interested in skewing results, I'm interested in the question. That being said, characters that I do not know or from series that I just don't have a great memory of, I will not be including in the matchups. Note number three, just hands means just that. Any examples of super strength or speed will not be being considered at all. We are talking about these characters as if they were otherwise normal people with their height and weight, but giving them the martial arts training and experience as best we can given those parameters. Lastly, I am going to be discluding all the female combatants and Majin Buu because I really don't know how Buu would work without powers. If you're unhappy about that, that's fine. You can call me old fashioned if you want. I'm not going to talk about them. So here's how it's going to work. We are going to examine different categories that are generally considered important in a fight. And anytime Goku holds an advantage, he will get a point against a character. Anytime he holds a disadvantage, that character will get a point. And if I can't determine it, they tie there. And we'll tally them up at the end. I'm not going to be doing a full breakdown of each fight, otherwise, this video would be like 5 hours long. But if people are curious about my reasoning, they can ask me in the comments below, or I can do an additional follow up video where I do deeper dives into each of these just hands matchups. And why not start with the main topic at hand? Martial arts. This sort of leads us into our first problem. While a lot of Goku's martial arts are inspired by or based on actual martial arts, they're themselves not real martial arts. They exist within his own universe, like the Kame style. That or they're based around the use of ki, which we're not using here. In this case, I'm going to be granting Goku a lot, and honestly, I feel he's both earned and deserves this. Look, Goku is the golden child of anime. Dragon Ball, along with Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, is one of the major reasons I took up traditional martial arts in the first place. Toriyama has also stated that things like kung fu movies served as a major inspiration. A lot of fans have also pointed out techniques that are similar to American kickboxing and karate, and looking at them, I can see it. So, if you disagree with some of the assumptions I'm about to make here, that's perfectly fine. But for the purposes of my video, I'm going to be giving our boy Goku here a master's level knowledge of both Northern and Southern Chinese Shaolin Kung Fu, karate, American kickboxing, and I'm even going to throw in Tai Chi because of all of this stuff. Well, what about Turtle Style? It's probably Goku's most famous style. Well, it's a style meant to push you beyond your physical limits, but no super strength here, so we can't use that. Though there are a couple of assumptions that I'm going to make here to transpose what I think is probably the real-world equivalent onto Goku. Goku has demonstrated both the drive and the ability to lift heavier and heavier weights. When my youngest brother was only 18 years old and at the max weight of 148, he won a deadlifting competition by deadlifting 405 pounds. So smaller people can sometimes have unexpected strength. So even though they're not technically martial arts, Goku is also going to be coming in with a knowledge of powerlifting and CrossFit. Goku has also demonstrated again and again a master level battle IQ, not only being able to see and copy techniques, but recognize what his opponents are doing and form counters from there. My favorite example of this was when he invented his own monkey kung fu form to counter Jackie Chun's drunken master. But when it comes to battle IQ and how it's going to help in these fights, well, that's a surprise tool that'll help us later. So how does Goku's martial arts background help him in this just hands debate? Well, it's a mixed bag. It's not that there's no one with kung fu or karate backgrounds in the UFC or other mixed martial arts. It's just that there's not a lot of them. While there are fighters that claim kung fu as a background like Sung Lee, it's just not one of the more popular styles. And there is a reason for this. People who do this professionally use what works best in the ring. Now, this data is a couple years old, but at the time this person put this information together, the 5 most popular styles were BJJ, wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai, and specifically just MMA training. Then you just have a small spattering of other styles in there. Really giving Goku kickboxing is what kind of helped him in this area. So this is how I made my determinations on who was going to be taking points here. Anyone with experience in or experience fighting against the top 5 styles is going to take the point. And anyone who's either self-taught or knows a more useless style, like let's say ninjutsu or sword fighting in a just hands match, is probably going to lose out on a point against Goku. And then there were just a few that I found to be tough calls, but yeah, here's the results. Goku took 20 out of the 26 matchups and had only one tie, and that tie was mostly because I found the character really hard to judge. In this category, he did exceptionally well, taking a 76% advantage in this category. And honestly, with his diverse background, you could probably even argue that a couple of these he should take the advantage over as well. So it looks like our boy Goku's off to a good start. All right, so he's starting off pretty strong. But knowing how to throw a punch isn't all there is in a fight. It's also the weight behind the punch. So let's talk about Goku's other stats. Here we run into a few more problems. You see, the only official stats I can find for Goku list him at 5'9" and 137 pounds. And as much as people may not want to admit this, things like height and weight really matter in a fight. So we need to talk about this. The height I'm fine with, but the weight, I mean, just look at the guy. Do a simple Google search and you'll find fans arguing this point, and I have to agree. Even discounting Ki, there is a massive difference between Goku at the start of Z, who I could probably buy at 137, and the end of Z. Fans have estimated Goku could weigh anywhere from 160 pounds all the way up to 240, and this matters because there's a reason weight classes exist, guys. At the end of the day, a punch is really just basic physics. It's the speed of the punch plus the mass behind it, and the mass is determined by the weight behind the punch. So do I go with the official weight that would put him in bantamweight, or do I go with some of the fan estimations that could jump him all the way up to heavyweight? Fighters gaining 10 to 20 pounds after an initial weigh-in can cause a significant advantage in their favor. According to the BBC, 20 kilograms, or roughly 44 pounds, is enough for one boxer to feel a punch of another's more, even if that weight is coming from fat and not muscle. And another study feeds into this by showing that striking styles and weight are predicators on KO and TKO decisions in fights. So how much Goku weighs and the way he fights with that weight absolutely matters. No matter which I pick, people are gonna be unhappy, aren't they? Okay, so there are a few things here. The first is Goku is a cartoon character. Of course, his proportions will never be an exact one-to-one with real people. In fact, proportions in the show itself are often all over the place. This is just sort of the nature with the medium. We also know for a fact that ki can increase muscle mass. But since this hypothetical has no ki, that's out. There are also times when he's just portrayed as much thinner, even if Akira Toriyama wasn't always drawing him that way. But looking at the Star to Z and something like Super Saiyan God, I can kind of get some Bruce Lee looking vibes. For example, here's Bruce Lee at a whopping 147 pounds, and honestly, that's a lot of muscle on a dude that doesn't weigh all that much. You should also probably remember that Akira Toriyama, whenever he was writing Goku, had Japanese averages in mind, and not necessarily the science behind muscle mass. Even with all that, I find it kind of impossible to deny that Goku has gained mass throughout the series. I mean, I'm an inch taller than him, and I'm in pretty decent shape for my age, and there is no way I should outweigh the GOAT by almost 50 pounds. Look, I know no one's going to be happy with this, but I've decided to go with the official weight. I've already listed some reasons why I can justify this in my head, but really the main one is if I upscale Goku, I'm going to have to look at each and every character individually and try to figure out where I personally think they should weigh. And I honestly feel that's going to get super messy. The truth is there'd just be way too many characters I'd either have to upscale or downscale depending on my personal biases, and this just removes that for me. And at the end of the day, if you're not happy with this decision, your argument is really with Akira Toriyama and not me. As for how I determined advantages in this round, I decided to go with the benchmark of 10 pounds heavier would give a character an advantage. In my head, anything heavier than 20 pounds was a significant advantage, but I didn't put any special indicators on that. I just went with a 10-pound benchmark. So this is Goku's first major hurdle. He only takes the advantage in 7 out of these 26 matchups with 4 ties. And one being arguable because I couldn't find a great source for a character's weight. But as I said before, if you really want to upscale Goku for this, I really wouldn't have a problem with that. But for the purposes of this video, this is where he's at. As for height, I'm more accepting of that. I'm perfectly fine with Goku being at 5'9". You're not going to get any argument from me. But why does that matter? You may have noticed earlier in this video that the imaginary axis's reason for Goku losing so many matchups was because of his height, and that's with good reason. It has been estimated that as little as 3 inches of reach advantage can increase your chances of winning a fight. In fact, it's been shown that having a reach advantage is an inherent benefit to you, and with every inch your chances of winning increases. And 7 inches of reach advantage can increase your chance of victory up to 65%. The reason this matters should be obvious. Having longer reach allows you to control the distance of the fight. Shorter people will have to close in the gap, and that can be exhausting. And that's just the most obvious surface level benefit. Now, that might not sound insurmountable, but you have to remember that this is an advantage regardless of weight class. Now, while 5'9" doesn't grant Goku Short King status, it does place him in that almost exact average range, meaning anyone below his bell curve, that being roughly 3 inches, will put them at a disadvantage, while anyone above that bell curve of 3 inches is going to put Goku at the disadvantage, and anyone even taller than that is going to present a bigger problem. So let's look at the results and see how he holds up. Now, I chose to use 3 inches of reach to be the advantage to help produce more consistent results, as I felt 1 or 2 inches in either direction really wasn't significant enough of an advantage for me to really say. So in the height category, Goku only takes the advantage in 5 out of the 26 matchups. But 13 of these matchups are virtual ties. That means Goku is only at a disadvantage in 8 of these fights. It just goes to show what being average gets you. The next factor we need to talk about is age. As much as we all hate to admit it, getting old sucks. Especially without powers. You always hear about fighters in their prime. Well, there's a prime age as well. Now, the sources I found seemed to differ on exactly what that is, but the age range seems to be between 20 and 30 or 20 and 32. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that being the prime fighting age. Once you start getting past those ages, you have decreasing testosterone levels in men. Your injuries start catching up with you. Your joints start to go. You're not throwing your punches as hard as you used to. Then you also have slowing reaction time with age. And each year, these problems increase over time. So, how old is Goku exactly? You see, Goku spent some of his series dead, and while he was dead, he didn't age. And then there were times when he was inside of the hyperbolic time chamber. One day inside of the hyperbolic time chamber equaled 1 year of training for him. So his chronological age did not match his biological age. Of course, we are going with the biological age because how biology affects the fighter is what matters here. This places me in another precarious position. At the end of his series, Goku is 47 years old. However, he's different ages throughout the entire timeline, and really wherever you pluck him from is going to alter this category. So, what do we do? Can't wait to see how you fudge this one up like your horrible weight take. Really? Come on, man. So again, my opinion here is really if I put Goku in one of his prime ages, I would have to do that for every single fighter who is also past their prime. There's not really a lot of them on this list, but that would be the fair thing to do, right? So again, if I place Goku in his prime age, any fighter that is also outside of that, I would feel like I'd also have to do for them. And it starts to feel like it's going against the spirit of this question in the first place. At the same time, to me at least, using Goku at the end of his series feels like pulling a fighter out of retirement to fight a bunch of young up-and-comers. So to be fair, I've decided we are going to take Goku from his most active arc, that being Dragon Ball Super Hero, which places Goku in the 37 to 41 year age range. I'm going to err on the side of caution and make him a little bit younger here, just to be fair. And if you don't like that choice, that's perfectly reasonable. But if you're going to alter Goku's age and not any of the other fighters, you should probably have a good rational reason as to why. That does place Goku outside of the prime fighting age, but not by a lot, and for a guy like him, how much is it even really gonna matter? How I made my determinations on this one shouldn't be that hard to figure out. Anyone in that prime fighting age category is going to take the advantage, and anyone older than Goku is going to be at a slight disadvantage because of that increasing decline in fighting ability as we age. Now, anyone younger than that prime fighting category, I couldn't find a lot of good data on. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of hard science on 17-year-olds and 40-year-olds getting into fistfights. So those I'm just going to call a tie. So we plug in those results and... Unfortunately, this category really sort of hurt Goku. He only took one match out of all 26, and that was against Vegeta. Though he did have 13 ties. One of the ties was against Thor's, who is 39, and since I couldn't really get a very solid answer on Goku's age being between 37 and 41, I decided to just call that one a wash. However, there are a fair number of fighters really right in that prime fighting age, and a decent amount of characters are written super young in anime, so a lot of them were, just well outside of that. But I wouldn't say Goku has aged out of fighting just yet. Now, if you've managed to stick with me this long, I hope you realize I have tried to be as fair and objective as possible with this question. But for the life of me, I could not find a way to fairly measure endurance and conditioning when it comes to removing powers and these characters just throwing hands. So this one's pained me a little bit, but I've decided to mesh endurance and experience into a single category. I really hope my logic follows on this, that being the people who have been doing this longer are more conditioned to do so, especially since most of these characters are professional fighters. Now, I know age should mess with endurance a little bit, but my hope was by making age its own separate category that it would help counterbalance this issue. So I hope you'll forgive the mess here, but it's all I got. And we all know Goku has been both training and competing since early childhood, so that's a lot of experience. So all we have to do is look at how long everyone else has been training, and the results come to. I gave Goku the advantage in 22 out of the 26 matchups, his only real loss being against Vegeta, which would be the Prince's first win in this conversation. And when it came to Yujiro Hanma, I made it a tie since both of these characters have pretty much been training right out of the womb. The characters Akaza and Jin Mori I also found really hard to talk about, so I also marked them down as a tie. Meaning in experience, Goku has a staggering advantage over most of his opponents. Wait, what about Goku's battle IQ? Doesn't that help his experience or his martial prowess? Yeah, let's talk about battle IQ. Goku is known to be a fighting genius, able to copy moves and adapt to his opponents, even inventing new ways of fighting on the fly when the situation calls for it. Just ask any of his fans, and they'll all be praising his amazing battle IQ.
Because Goku's a martial arts genius and he solos!
The thing is, well, while Goku is the OG of an absurd battle IQ, it's almost a give me power in shonen anime at this point. Seriously, almost everyone on this list has an extremely high battle IQ, and there are a few exceptions. And how high it might be compared to the GOAT, in my opinion, is subjective. And how much it actually matters, well, that's really a difficult thing to say with any objectivity. So you're allowed to be mad at me for this as well, but I'm only going to be looking at fights that I considered otherwise equal. And because I didn't rewatch any of these other series in preparation for this video, I'm going mostly based off of memory and some scans I could find. I had a pretty heavy bias in Dragon Ball's favor anyway. Oh, so you're not giving him credit? No. What I'm saying is, in the matchups you would want it to matter most in, it is a complete non-factor. Take someone like Baki, for example. Characters like him have also inventing new fighting methods on the fly, including an entire new kung fu style based around dinosaurs. Both he and his father, Yujiro Hanma, are able to quickly decipher their enemies' fighting methods and form counters, such as when Yujiro Hanma recognized and then mimicked Shiori against the great Kaio. Characters like Oma were able to quickly decipher Elito's claw ability and form counters to that as well. These are just a few of the examples, and a lot of them already outstat Goku. Goku is already at a severe height and weight disadvantage against a few of these fighters, and they are pulling off the same sort of absurd battle feats as him as well. So it's really hard for me to say Goku's battle IQ is really all that much better. Even if we were to weigh Goku up to where he was more even with a few of these characters, I don't think it's going to alter the results all that much. However, there are a few instances where I feel being a fighting genius does help Goku get past the odds, and I took that into consideration with the results that we'll talk about here in a minute. What? What? Come on. This is the part where you tell us why everything you've just said throughout the entire video really doesn't matter. Hee hee. Alright. It's not that this stuff doesn't matter. It very verifiably does. But back in the days of UFC 1, there was a little guy known as Royce Gracie. Gracie was one of the shorter guys in the bracket, and he weighed the least. Despite this, he was still able to grapple his way to a victory, and this was back in the days where there were less rules and regulations. Now, MMA back then was still more of a style versus style sort of thing, But it does go to show that smart fighting and doing some things your opponent are not used to can go a long way. Fights are messy. Oftentimes they are very unpredictable. Guys can get lucky shots in. Sometimes the dude who is generally the better fighter might just have an off day. Whenever you're going to square up with somebody, you should never discount the little guy, especially if it's just hands. With that out of the way, there are a few ways we could fiddle with the results of this contest. In my opinion, there are several characters who absolutely should be weighed up, and Goku is one of them. You also have things like battle IQ and which martial art has the advantage over others, and that's more subjective than some of the other categories like reach and weight advantage. So how did our boy Goku do? Let's look at the results together. In my opinion, Goku has the advantage in 16 out of the 25 fights, with 4 matchups being extremely tough for me to call. That's a 61% win ratio. And in the 4 ties, if I put characters weight where I believe they belong, the odds would be tilted in Goku's favor for at least a few of them. So if you really want to, we could call it 19 to 20 out of 26 matchups in the world champion's favor. That's between a 73% and a 76% win ratio. And of course, some fighters took the L against Goku because of personal biases I have. For example, Sasuke and Zoro. Despite both of them being taller and weighing more than Goku, at least on paper, I felt the foundation of kickboxing and Goku's experience trumped out against things like sword fighting and taijutsu. And in other cases, I felt that the battle IQ did play a pivotal role. But that's just me. In my opinion, Goku's roadblocks in these scenarios remains pretty stagnant. Those being characters like Oma and Yujiro, who always have a reach advantage, and I feel would have to be reweighed as well. A lot of these characters also come with their own hefty battle IQs, so it becomes a moot point. Goku is a striker who is always going to be at a disadvantage when he has to close the gap. Worse yet, Goku is a striker in a world that has incorporated grappling pretty heavily. And grappling is really just not what his series is about. But most of the examples we have of him doing it pales in comparison to some of these other characters, and it puts him at a disadvantage. Now, do I believe that Goku could learn grappling as the fight progresses? Of course. But I don't see any reason to make the assumption that's going to give him the advantage over characters that have been doing it throughout their entire series or have experience fighting against it. So how far can Just Hands take you? Pretty far, it seems. Taking away his powers wasn't enough for the big 3 to stand a chance against the main man. Saitama can't one-punch his way out of this situation, and the Prince of All Saiyans really gets bodied. But hey, that's just my opinion. Anyway, that's been Daniel with Boo! What? What is it this time? Boo! Do Superman. You talk all this mad shit on Goku. Do your boy. Boo! What? I wasn't talking shit. I just took the question, applied what I could to see the results, and boo! Do Superman. Boo! Okay. Next time on Just Hands, I guess we're gonna see how far truth, justice, and the American way can get you. I'll catch you there.